Thank you for doing this movie. It's really impactful.
Thank you so much. Thank you for spotlighting it. I appreciate that.
Sure thing. I'm going to see how it shows. Let me know if you see a window blocking it. Is it okay?
I don't see any windows so far. Make it full
Looks
screen.
fine.
Make it
Yeah.
full
Full
screen. I see it.
screen. Okay. Last time I did full screen, it dropped out of sharing.
Oh, that's right. You may not want to do that. Yeah, I
You
did.
did, right? It dropped out of sharing.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
So we'll just see it the way it is.
Do I need to stop the recording?
No. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I just paused the recording. You can
Pause
just
it,
pause
right?
it. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Let me see if this works. If I share when it's already full screen. Do you see it now? Can you unmute, Jamie?
Yes. Hi.
Okay. Wow. How long did it take to make this movie?
Um, it's been about 6 years since we started working on the film.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Amazing. What
Thank
gave you the motivation to write this and produce this?
Well, I was born and raised in North Carolina, not in Eastern North Carolina where the film takes place, but about an hour and a half or so down the road from there. And like most people in the state grew up eating barbecue and different kinds of pork products and not really thinking much of where they came from. And I first started learning about environmental issues in high school and then focused largely on that in college and specifically kind of looked at the environmental impacts of animal agriculture. And I ended up doing my undergraduate honors thesis research on the North Carolina pork industry and learned so much about the many different ways that the industry harms people, also animals and the environment, and was really um, just really kind of shocked by how much harm
Mhm.
is sort of kind of collectively occurring at the hands of this industry. Several years later, I was working at an animal advocacy organization, Mercy for Animals, and had the opportunity to work in collaboration with another filmmaker, Sean Bannon, who's the director of the film, and we decided to do a feature documentary together. And
Mhm.
this was the topic that I proposed for our film because I had kind of come across this issue years prior and really felt that it would make for a compelling story that the residents' voices were really powerful and needed to be heard. So that was about 6 years ago since we had that first conversation about the film.
Mhm. So, what was your vegan journey? How did you do that?
Well, the honors thesis research that I just mentioned was a big part of my own vegan journey because I had been vegetarian at the time. I went vegetarian in high school, primarily after learning about the environmental impacts, like I mentioned, of animal agriculture. And then in college, I kind of, I honestly sort of kept looking for a way to continue to eat eggs and dairy products and to feel good about that. And I ended up doing an internship on a organic grass-fed kind of free-range dairy farm, and was really disturbed by the way the animals were treated in that context. And so I kind of thought, if animals are still mistreated on this kind of ideal farm,
Mhm.
then I don't feel like I can continue to eat them. But it was also this, like I said, it was kind of the research of learning more about the pork industry. It was definitely this issue that we focus on in the film of environmental racism and the impacts, the disproportionate impacts that animal agriculture, that factory farming has on communities of color. That was really heart-wrenching to learn about, and felt like I was kind of stumbling across a piece of really dark history from my state and the South more broadly, and America's history that was still playing out in the form of this industry's exploitation of people. So for me, it was not like one single factor that prompted me to go vegan. It was kind of a bunch of different things, and I think part of the motivation for making this film was feeling like, even as a vegan activist, even as an animal rights activist, I didn't see enough conversation about the human toll that this industry takes. I didn't feel like there was quite enough discussion or understanding of how people are affected by factory farming as well as the animals. So I kind of wanted to fill that gap in a way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's we talk about dangerous and dehumanizing work in the animal agriculture industry, but this is the neighbors are affected. I mean, people all around are affected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
One other question, is Tom Butler now farming mushrooms? That would be awesome.
Yeah, great question. He is working on it still. He actually still is raising pigs, in part because he is really buried under an enormous amount of debt. We were careful in the film not to completely vilify farmers because they are also really trapped in the system, and many of them don't understand what they're getting into when they start out. So he is working on transitioning to mushrooms. It's a slow process, but his son is involved too, and so he's hoping that he will carry on. After his father passes away and he leaves the farm to him, he'll be able to hopefully bring a new kind of agriculture in. But yeah, they're working on it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, these are all contract farmers, right?
Exactly. That's right.
So
Yeah,
they're probably deeply buried under debt. This is basically
exactly.
a system of enslaving people into doing things that they don't want to do.
Definitely. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about the farmers as kind of a form of indentured servitude that they're
Right.
stuck in. Yeah, with these big corporations that keep requiring them to make changes or make upgrades and put that cost on the farmers, and then it's extremely difficult for them to find another way of earning a living. So it's a process, but I'm hopeful that when Tom transitions and other farmers do too, that they'll be able to serve as models for additional farmers to follow that kind of journey and hopefully find their way out as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the term indentured servitude, because that's really what happens to almost all of us, through student loans, all these loans that you take, basically they force you to then get stuck to the system,
Mm-hmm.
and you're giving away your life to just pay back a loan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. We're all kind of victims of capitalism in one way or another, I would say.
yeah, yeah. We're all being factory farmed.
Mm-hmm.
Watch, you had a question? Yeah.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Rao. And thanks. Scrolling up.
Jamie.
Jamie for Jamie for creating the documentary. And thanks for being vegan. And that shows consistency and congruity with the principles of the movie. And I was involved for a short time. I think we had some screenings in Georgia for the documentary with Chris, the founder of Apex Advocacy.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much for being involved in this.
Yeah, so it was good. It was a good experience. The question which I wanted to ask you is that a couple of things. The slaughterhouse farm workers, do they have a union? And I wonder if you can collaborate with them, because that's the documentary shows how COVID had a strong hold on these workers at not only Smithfield but other slaughterhouses also. So they would be interested in having a screening of this documentary. And also how many other people who are associated with this documentary finally are on their vegan journey or did become a vegan as part of this project?
Yeah, good questions. Thank you for those. As far as the slaughterhouse workers and their unions, I'm definitely familiar with at least a couple of different organizations that work with slaughterhouse workers to try to help them organize and fight for better protections. And yeah, I would love to do screenings with them. I think that's definitely an audience we'd love to reach more. I'm also hoping that at some point we might be able to I might be able to do another film or a short film at least with some of the footage that we got that we weren't able to include in the final movie, with interviews with slaughter plant workers. We also interviewed a rendering plant worker, and his story was just absolutely horrific as well. That was sort of a side of the industry that we did kind of explore to some extent in North Carolina, but then we ended up really needing to kind of narrow the focus. There's only so much that you can pack into, one feature-length film. So I would love to explore that further. I think that's definitely another kind of layer to this system, and there's a lot of injustice, of course, happening within slaughter plants, and the community is impacted by them too, in terms of kind of the spillover effect of that inherently very violent place, in terms of the rates of domestic violence and other types of violent crime in areas with slaughter plants, and as you mentioned, COVID, and also just the kind of challenges that are unique for migrant workers working in those situations. So there's a lot of different kind of pieces to that I would be curious to explore more. As far as your second question, I mean, a number of the people that we worked with or, connected with in North Carolina are either fully vegan or are somewhere along that path, are becoming more conscious about what they're eating. Rick Dove, who you see in the film, The Waterkeeper, is vegan. And I think Larry Baldwin also is somewhere on the spectrum, really trying to limit animal consumption. I think and that was the case too for Renee Miller, who's one of the characters in the film who's really most kind of surrounded by factory farms of really anyone I've ever met. She's got the most kind of highest density around her home. As she says in the film, she doesn't eat meat. We brought her an Impossible Burger one time, and she really loved that. But I think it's important to remember that for many people, going vegan overnight or even, making that transition entirely is more difficult than it is for some of us who have more knowledge, more access, more kind of education, more understanding of how to get and cook, other types of foods. And so we really came in with a lot of compassion for people and didn't judge them for not being in that place. Though, like I said, many of the people that we spoke with were somewhere around, veganism. But I think also pretty much everyone we talked to did have a really, I think, clear understanding of the connection between their own suffering and what was happening in their communities and what happens to animals. We didn't, again, this was a film that we really wanted to focus on the kind of human element, but we were really, I think, inspired to hear from people kind of offering up this perspective about, we understand that what's happening to animals is wrong, as well, and that they're also kind of, just completely exploited for the sake of profit. So that was something that we heard often.
Yeah, I like the title, The Smell of Money. So completely exploited for the smell of money.
Mm-hmm. Right. All comes back to the money.
Allison?
Hi, Jamie. There's a portion of the film that I love, and this is the second time I'm seeing it, and it had the same impact on me this time that it did the first time. And it's where you show the map of the United States with the number of the particular states that you'd have to collect the human waste from all of those states to equal the amount of pig waste state of North Carolina. And it's shocking, that image, because it's not like you pick 10 states with small populations. They picked some of the biggest states in terms of population. And I think that would make a great little segment that could be spread around if we could just capture that little segment and make that go viral. I think that would be very impactful. I don't know if you've heard that comment from other people before.
I don't think so. I haven't really heard anyone call out that particular part of the film, but I'm glad to hear that it resonated with you. Yeah, it's shocking. It's really it's definitely quite disturbing. I would be totally open to lending that clip to anyone if they have the power to make it go viral. I mean, we've been doing everything we can to make, to get as many people as possible to be able to watch the film, but we're definitely open to trying to kind of, offer up any of those particular parts of it too, if you know of any advocacy groups or influential people who would be willing to share it. But I appreciate you mentioning that stuck out to you.
Okay, good. Well, we'll discuss that in our team and see what we can
great.
do.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Alison. I also wanted to ask you a question about the water, how the water is being polluted, right, from all the species. And we are not treating the water at all for animal waste. Whereas for human waste, we go through an elaborate process for treating it. And but there also we don't clean it off of chemical pollution. It's only the biological pollution that they take out. Okay, so it's not complete. But suppose you got the state to pass a water law, and Dr. Shelley Ostroff has been talking about a world water law, where basically saying that dirtying the water is illegal. So simple, right? And so all water has to be clean. So these corporations will then be forced to put treatment plants to clean up the water. And that would, drive them out of business. I mean, the goal is to just shut this industry down, I mean, for me, the killing machine has to be shut down if we do not want the planet to die. This is not complicated to understand, right? It's killing not only the animals, it's also killing us.
Totally. That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, the Clean Water Act is supposed to not necessarily do exactly that, but it is supposed to protect the waters of the United States and prevent people from polluting them. I think the problem lies in part with the enforcement of water regulations in North Carolina, and I think in many other states, the enforcement agencies that are charged with making sure that, that industries are following the law are really under-resourced. They don't have the staff or the, financial capacity to do that. And they've also been really bought out by the industry. I think at the end of the day, it comes back to the fact that, the pork industry, the poultry industry, all, large agribusiness has an enormous kind of just an unfathomable amount of political power. And they've been able to buy their way through, basically through to a place where they have total control over our political system in so many ways. It was so apparent in North Carolina, where people who are elected to protect and care for, people in Eastern North Carolina are people who quite literally work for the pork industry or the poultry industry. They earn their living from those businesses. And so who are they answering to? They're not, and their campaign contributions all come from the industry. So I think, when we talk about water pollution and why that's happening and why it's allowed, it isn't allowed. It's just that they've been able to kind of accumulate this power that basically prevents them from being held accountable in any real way.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a sheer corruption ultimately.
Exactly.
Right? Dolly.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being vegan, like someone said, number one. And, the film was so educational and informative. It's heart-wrenching what happened to that beautiful lady. Does this sanctuary still there? I mean, the slaughterhouse is still, does it still exist there?
Do you mean the farm or the kind of
Yeah.
the factory farm, the operation near Elsie's home?
Yes.
Yes, it's still there.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And they're still spraying, right? They're still spraying.
That's right.
How could this even be, can there be anything legal done about it?
Well, I mean, the
local-
lawsuits that we follow in the film were supposed to help address this issue, or at least give residents kind of financial compensation for the nuisances that they've experienced. And they did, they did win.
Yeah.
I think that the unfortunate thing is that, and this kind of goes back to what I was just talking about in terms of the political power of the industry. There's a law in North Carolina that had been championed, not surprisingly, by an industry-friendly legislator that caps the amount of damages that people can receive in nuisance lawsuits against big ag companies. So even though you see those kind of large sums in the film in terms of how much people were awarded or how much, the juries wanted them to get, because all 5 juries of the cases that went to trial sided with the residents and said Smithfield should pay.
Yeah.
Those amounts were actually capped and significantly reduced. So, the total sum that the jury awarded was about $500 million, but in the end, it was less than $100 million that Smithfield had to pay. And we don't know exactly what the settlement amounts were. And of course, a lot of that went to legal fees, went to cover the 9-year-long battle, because the lawyers didn't get anything up front. They just got paid at the end.
Oh man.
So, the situation on the ground is much the same as it is in the film today. It's people are still having animal waste sprayed on their homes. Elsie's family still lives on that land, so we
Oh gosh.
in touch with her family.
Yeah.
And Renee is still there. She's still dealing with this, and she still drives a school bus. It's not like people got these massive awards that allowed them to kind of protect themselves, honestly, from this. They were able to pay off some of their medical bills, maybe, but still are fighting the fight.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing this and bringing this awareness to us. Also, I think it's a great idea to show this in universities, environmental students and agricultural students. That would be great.
Yeah, we've done about 50 or so screenings at universities, which has been amazing. And I always try to mention this. I'm glad you mentioned this because during Q&As, I always try to mention if you're connected with any universities, if you want to contact your school or your local university or high schools too. We're starting to do more high school screenings. So please do help us, spread the word and get in front of more students. That's definitely a big goal of ours. I appreciate you mentioning that.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dolly. Jasmine?
Thank you. I think Dolly and Sailesh have already asked similar questions to what I was going to, but thank you so much for this powerful film. The scene that really moved me was of the hurricane. And the pigs swimming free. And so my question is, what happened? What was the aftermath of the hurricane? What were the consequences? Was there any impacts? It's kind of related to Sailesh's question about the water pollution. And were the animals freed? Were any of the animals, did they just kind of swim off and make new lives elsewhere? So
yeah, good question. Well, hurricanes in North Carolina are fairly frequent. Growing up there, I remember always having hurricane drills and being concerned about flooding and dealing with really heavy rains. So even though we only feature one of the many hurricanes that has hit North Carolina in the film, this is something that happens over and over and over again. And I think Rick spoke a little bit to that it's fairly common that we get hit with a big storm, and have this kind of devastation happen to these factory farms. And Obviously devastation for the animals and for the communities in terms of just polluted water being swept through their neighborhoods. In terms of what happened after this one, I mean, the pigs that you saw in the clip that we featured, that was actually a clip that we got from We Animals. If anyone's familiar with the amazing photographer Joanne MacArthur, her organization, they went down after the hurricane and were able to rescue a number of pigs. So there are many hurricane pigs. I honestly don't know how many. I think several dozen at least, who live at a sanctuary in Duplin County, like right in eastern North Carolina. And if you have a chance to visit there, it's called Sisu Refuge. It's a beautiful place. And they call them the hurricane pigs. They have a bunch of hurricane pigs. Kind of on a darker, sadder note, I think after the first several huge hurricanes hit the industry once it had really become established in North Carolina in the 90s. Originally, what the farmers would do is kind of open the doors and let the animals out. And then the water keepers and the media were able to take pictures of that aftermath and show people. There's a really powerful aerial image that we didn't end up including in the film, but from a hurricane where you could just see like hundreds of thousands of pigs kind of out in flood waters. And the industry realized that that really looked bad for them. So now what they do when hurricanes happen for the most part is they close the building doors and the animals just drown inside, which is really, really horrific. But I think that just goes to show how concerned the industry is with its image and that it would rather just allow the animals to perish than look bad to the public.
Right.
And of course, as soon as the floodwaters recede, they just rebuild the buildings and have animals come back in. And it's definitely something that the government is aware of, that there are these facilities in the floodplain and that they're really vulnerable. But again, they're so powerful that I think it's still cheap enough to produce pork despite the fact that they have to deal with this kind of rebuilding and these problems. And again, it falls on the farmers many times to deal with that kind of reconstruction. So it's a big problem, but thank you. Yeah.
Small blessings
for that
bless
question.
those piggies. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jasmine. Tammy? You've turned on your video.
Yes, hello, sorry.
Hi.
Sorry, I just was scrambling here a bit. I accidentally deleted my whole PowerPoint from my next presentation.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's okay. I guess it'll be interesting to see what happens out of it, I guess. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for the documentary. Paul and I looked at each other a couple times and cried, and just the enormity of human resilience. Human resilience, it moves me all the time. And that people in the worst conditions can get up and say, enough, we're not going to allow this anymore. And our next convergence is going to be on, the games people play and the stories we tell. And there's been so many stories in this convergence, and stories really speak to us. They speak so deeply. And your documentary spoke so deeply of human and animal resiliency and the ability for people to have a change of heart. There was lots of change of heart going on there, and an absolute bravery, the brave hearts of people to say, they never know what's going to happen to them by saying, we deserve a little bit of health sovereignty here. And so thank you for portraying that beautiful essence of, wow, in the worst of conditions, people can join together and become so strong together. And so thank you very much for that.
Thank you. That was really beautifully said. And I feel like you captured, the true essence of what we were hoping to get across with the film. I mean, Elsie just truly never gave up. She just fought and fought and fought. And I think as an activist, I think about that so much because I've struggled with my own feelings of burnout and feelings of overwhelm. I mean, it's a huge monstrosity that we're up against. So I really appreciate you highlighting that that piece. I think of resilience is something that I admired so much about her and truly everyone else that we worked with. You know, so many of the people that we connected with through this film have been in this fight for decades and are just as, you know, persistent and energized as they have always been. That is so beautiful to see. So thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Tammy.
And yourself as well, Jamie, and the resiliency. Thank you for bringing that piece up too, how exhausting it was sometimes for you to do this film and being on the front lines of that. And then also, you know, when we watched McLivel, the resiliency of fighting for decades, decades, you know, so yeah, that's the other piece, not just the people you're portraying, but you and the filmmakers and the activists and the people that are going to the front lines of people and human, earth, and animal liberation. So thank you very much. I'm complete.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Go ahead, Lisa.
Hello, Jamie, and thank you. I was very moved by the film. I'm always brought to the enormity of what we're up against. In one of the other slides from another presentation, company rock.
Uh-oh.
Trying to think what land it owned.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Lisa. You're freezing for me a little bit.
Also the same company that buys up houses and then turns them into rentals.
BlackRock.
BlackRock.
Yeah.
So they're an absolute scourge on society, on the world. It is truly like a Goliath kind of a situation. So your beautiful portrayal and hopeful, personalized film juxtaposed to this. It's funny their name is Black Rock because it's exactly how it registers in me. It's like this impenetrable evil. And, you know, I'm reminded of a lot of the documentaries that we've all seen all throughout the years of the human story, and some prevailing and some chipping away. But God damn it, those people are still living with that spray down there. And that company is, you know, doesn't feel the the millions of dollars that they had to give up for, the settlement. So I guess I just needed to say that, you know, that these companies, this isn't just animal agriculture. It's a bigger force that I'm not exactly sure, you know, the kind of collaboration that we're all doing. I don't know. I don't have the answer, but it just, when I thought about that Black Rock, you know, and I'm thinking about it again, and how do we, other than, you know, the deep inspiration that we can get from your films like that, but man, it's just so huge. So anyway, sorry, I just had to let that out. I've been here for a couple of days and I just, it's enormous. But thank you for what you've done. And I've got some ideas about where it could be viewed, you know, I live in Vermont, so.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think it's a good reminder. It's not just the agribusiness companies. It's a whole system. And, you know, as we try to illustrate in the film, it goes back to slavery. It goes back to genocide. It's really, really entrenched. It's much bigger than just, you know, a farm that's harming people. It's a whole very, very kind of evil, system that we have to piece apart one by one. I don't have the answers either. But I appreciate you all being here. and learning
Right.
and helping us share the film.
Yeah, it's just, it's the same problem that's been happening for thousands of years. It's just been cloaked in different ways.
It's true.
It's still going on, the same thing.
Yes.
And they think
That's
they
a
can
great way
deceive
to
us.
put
You know,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Dakota?
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much, Jamie, for this movie. Wow. Just, I hope it goes viral. I want to share it all around.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you. I just really admire your tenacity as well and your activism and those people. And I guess I was just shocked that after being awarded, a settlement and everything like that, and through the courts, I just assumed that they would also say to the company that they have to stop the spraying. I mean, I guess I don't know. I just thought, why are they still spraying? And it's like, oh, because it's illegal, I guess, I don't know. So yeah, the whole idea of maybe making laws to, have to have treatment to the water or something. But, I guess we can try that. People that are in that arena and lawyers and things like that. I mean, all of us have our own different, talents and skills to bring to the table as a movement. But yeah, I guess I kind of answered I was going to ask, well, didn't they make them stop that? Obviously not. So that's hard. It's heartbreaking. But we guess we do know we're up against a Goliath here. But the other thing I'm reminded of, I can't remember where I heard the idea first, but sometimes, instead of maybe always having the direct fighting confrontation kind of energy toward an evil, could be like instead just go toward the solution. And so that gives me hope. And that's what I'm so happy to be a part of Climate Healers, because I feel like that's a lot of what we do here is, we still fight the giant, but we kind of spend a lot of our energy on just going toward the solution and showing other people, here's how we can be free, So thank you for what you've done. And thanks for letting me share.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much for
Dakota.
sharing that. I really love that. Yeah, moving toward the solution. That's what I'm really excited about, the farmers that are working to try to get out, as I spoke to earlier. But thank you so much for saying that. I just saw there was a question in the chat. I just wanted to make sure I flagged this and answered it. Where is the movie being shown or streamed? If you go to our website, which is Smell of Money Doc, like documentary, doc.com. There's a bunch of different platforms that you can rent or purchase it on. Hopefully we'll be on like a streaming service like Netflix or something soon. We're still working on that, but for now it's on YouTube, Google Play, iTunes, or Apple TV, and Amazon. So you shouldn't have to like subscribe to anything. You can just pay $5 to rent it if you want, or tell other people too. Thank you.
Yeah, I've done that. So thank you so much, Jamie.